Hey guys, so 4-6 is about factoring quadratic polynomials, right? So specifically how to factor a quadratic. So we're going to learn how to factor those quadratics today. So we're assuming that we've already tried grouping or already done grouping, and you're left with a quadratic right here. Okay, so a quadratic has an x squared term, an x term, and a constant term. All right, so if you have something like this, all right, just like grouping is undistributing, all this factoring quadratics is it's unfoiling. Okay, because if you're given something like this, you know in order to expand it to get your quadratic, right, you FOIL. Okay, so with this FOILing, right, the first two terms multiplied together, okay, when you multiply the first two together, that gives you your x squared term. All right, when you multiply the last two together, right, that gives you your constant term. And when you multiply the outside and add it with multiplying the inside, that's how you get your middle term. Okay, so we're just unfoiling. That's all that's happening here. Right? The key for these is to look at the sign. So I'm going to show you what that's going to look like. Okay, so we have x squared. Let's assume that we don't have a coefficient in front of our x squared term. Right? If we have plus bx plus c. Right? That's one way to factor. So if you factor something that looks like this with positive and positive, right, plus the c means that you're going to have plus a number and plus a number. Okay, so these are very important, right? They're always going to be plus when you have both a positive in front of the c and the bx. All right, now if you have a minus bx plus c, all right, what that means is you're going to have two minuses in here. Right? And the reason for that is because you need two positive numbers to multiply together to get your plus c, but they're going to add to get a minus c. So minus times a minus is a positive, and a minus minus, or minus plus a minus, right, gives you a bigger negative number. Okay, the next scenario is if you have plus bx minus c, or you could have minus bx minus c. Now in each of these situations, you're going to have one plus, one minus. Right, and then the big part to think about for those type of situations is you'll have the bigger number as plus here, and the smaller number as the minus. And for this one, you're going to have the bigger number as the minus, and the smaller number is the plus. Okay, so those are the big keys to how to factor these things. I think it's easiest to see the examples. Right, so we'll hop into those. So first one, we have a, pay attention to the signs, minus and minus, okay? There's no coefficient in front of our x squared, so we know we just have x and x. Now we need two things that are going to multiply to negative 8 and add to negative 2. So that means that we're going to have 1 plus 1 minus, right? Because of the negative 8, that means we got 1 plus 1 minus. All right, and we need two things that multiply to negative 8, add to negative 2. So we can use 2 and 4, and the bigger number has to go with the negative, so they add to negative 2. Second problem here, right, you see plus and plus. That's maybe the worst circle I've ever done. Plus and plus, so you've got y and y, right? They're both going to be positive because you need to multiply to positive 4 and add to positive 3. Right, so the options here are 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. So we could try 2 and 2 first, plus 2 plus 2. That doesn't work because when you do the outside and the inside, those are going to add to to 4y instead of 3y, so that doesn't work. We can try 4 and 1. Right, but the problem with that is it's going to add up to 5y, so that doesn't work either. So the correct answer to this is just that this is prime. You can't factor it. All right, number 3. All right, it looks a little bit more difficult because you have two variables in there, but that just means that you're going to have an r in one and an s in the other. Okay, so we've got the r and the s, and the r and the s. Okay, notice we got a plus and a minus. All right, so positive s squared means we got same signs, right? We have to multiply the same signs, and then that they're adding up to a negative means that they're both going to be minus. Okay, so we need two things that multiply to 12 and add to negative 7. So we could do minus 3 and minus 4. Okay. Obviously check your answers. When they get more complicated like this, you want to check your answers. So you could see here that r times r is r squared. Outside is negative 4rs. Inside is negative 3rs, which combine to negative 7rs. And the back is 12s squared. So that's the correct answer. Now number 4. Okay, this work gets a little more difficult because we have an a that's bigger than 1. Okay, so what that means is the front two have to multiply to 2m squared. So you have to have a 2m and a 1m. Now look at these signs. We got minus minus, which means 1 plus 1's minus. But you don't know which one yet because that a is going to be involved when you multiply to get your inside, right? Your middle term. So we have, we know we need a plus 1 and minus 1. Just got to figure out where to do it. Well, when you do the outsides, you want the 2 to be with the negative. Okay, so when you multiply these two together, you would get 2m squared, which is good. Negative 2m plus 1m is negative 1m, good. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. All finished. All right, the next one here. We need a 5r and a 1r. Okay, we see a plus and a minus, right? The plus means the same sign. Minus means the bigger one, or they're both going to be negative. So we have both minus. All right, now to add to negative 10 and to multiply to positive 7, all right, we're going to need to try a 7 and 1 here. Right, the only options are 7 and 1 or 1 and 7. So this first one, we've got the front works out well, the back works out well, that's good. But the middle, we've got 5r, negative 5r, minus 7r gives us negative 12r. So that's not going to work. All right, so we could try minus 1 and minus 7. Give that a shot. We've got 5r squared, positive 7, good. Negative 35r and positive, or not, minus 1r gives us negative 36r. That's not going to work. Okay, so this one is also prime. And the last problem here, we have 2n and 1n. We're going to multiply to negative 18 and add to positive 9. Okay, so that means the bigger is going to have to be positive. All right, so I'm going to try plus 6 and minus 3 here and see how that works. All right, test it out. We've got 2n squared. That's good. We've got a negative 18 in the back. That's good. The outside, we've got 12n minus 3n for the inside to get 9n. So that's perfect. All good and finished.